Hi.
And hello to all of our shiny friends out there.
Yes.
If you don't know it already, you're listening to Kim and Cal.
And we're shiny things.
We are shiny. I'm not feeling so shiny today, Kelly.
I sure am with all this heat.
You're glistening.
Oh, okay.
Real women don't sweat. They humidify.
Oh, okay. So I'm humidifying then.
Yes.
At an outrageous rate.
If I had known this weather was going to be like this when we were going to do this podcast, I probably would have gotten one. Maybe it was based in the Arctic or something.
Yes, that's what we should start doing. Like opposite days.
Yeah, have to start thinking cool thoughts. Like put yourself someplace cold. And then maybe your body temperature will, everything will slow down and you'll feel cooler.
Or maybe that cool wristband thing that heats and warms you will sponsor us and give us free ones.
That would be kind of cool. Well, one can only hope, I guess.
All right, girls can dream.
That's true. So I did some research on Willowbrook State School.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you did one on a person that is kind of connected to it.
Yes.
So let's get going. So Kelly, you know the American Horror Story, the TV show.
Yes.
I know you like that kind of stuff. I will watch it, but it takes me days to get through something scary because I have to keep stopping it. Like,
we'll break you with that.
I'm a big baby. I mean, I like doing the crime podcast, but I'm not so big on the horror thing.
Oh, I'm not scared by the horror stuff. I don't know.
Because you're a tough girl. So this subject, this Willowbrook school that I want to talk about today, was loosely based on their season 2 Briarcliff Manor.
Ooh, that was a good season.
So it's apparently through Screen Rant, they said that Willowbrook School was one of their motivators, basically. They didn't come right out and say it was based on that, but it was loosely based on it.
Oh, so it's pretty scary. I would base it on there too.
Yeah, so this school was in Staten Island. And it was, plans to build it were made in 1938. And it was going to be for the care and teaching of developmentally disabled children and adults in a section of Staten Island. But while they were doing the construction, it wasn't completed until 1942. Oh, that's a really long time.
It is.
And even though it was completed in 1942, it didn't open for its original purpose. It opened as it was converted into a United States Army hospital during World War II. So I guess they needed it a little bit more at that point.
Yeah, a lot of people come back with tuberculosis and all kinds of fun stuff.
So it wasn't until the war was over that it opened in October 1947 for the original purpose. A few years after it opened, there were several outbreaks of hepatitis, which continued for decades. You'd think that this would have led to the increase in medical care, but you'd be wrong.
No, they were used as test subjects so that they could understand how hepatitis spreads. So all those poor people were infected just kind of
in barbaric ways.
Right, just to see what happened.
So it was all between the late 50s into the 70s, which surprised me. That's a long period of time for this kind of abuse of children and adults. It was, they became subjects of a controversial medical experiment, not just one experiment, 2, 3, 4, whatever they could dream up in their head, apparently. Right. Some were injected with the virus that caused hepatitis for medical studies. Some were forced to eat others' feces that had hepatitis. That is Unbelievable.
So, I mean, one good thing out of that tragedy is that we now have hepatitis A and hepatitis B vaccines, but there are other ways we could have gone about discovering those vaccines instead of harming all those poor innocent people.
I know. I know that some use came out of it, but it just it's barbaric to what they what lengths they went to for that. So according to Maurice Hillman, now Kelly, what was he? What was his title?
He's a virologist.
A virologist. Okay. So according to Maurice Hillman, the studies that were performed at Willowbrook were the very most unethical medical experiments that were ever performed on children in the United States. Well, we already knew that. By the year 1965, Willowbrook housed over 6,000 intellectually disabled people, despite having a maximum capacity of 4,000. Wow, that is a lot.
That is a lot.
So residents of Willowbrook outnumbered the staff. This is the part that's really unbelievable. They outnumbered the staff 50-1. How can one staff member, even if they were trained properly, handle 50 people? They can't.
No.
And that is why they were left wandering the building and school grounds unsupervised with nothing to do for hours at a time. Diane Buglanelli, a former staff member, was stated as saying individuals were denied their basic right to humanity. She went on to say prisons allot for 80 square feet per inmate, while Willowbrook provided only 35 square feet per resident.
Ugh.
I know, that's like standing in a little box all day.
I can't even fit in that.
I know, and you're little.
I know.
Unlike today's standards and requirements, staff weren't required to submit a background check for employment. And it was later revealed that many staff members physically, sexually, and emotionally abused the residents. A former resident, his name was Bernard Carabello, described getting beaten with sticks and belts and being kicked into walls by staff members. He also said sexual abuse was rampant at the hands of the staff and other residents.
Well, I'm sure the background checks weren't all that great back then.
They didn't do them.
Ugh.
That's how come these people got away with what they were doing. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I know once in a while you hear in the news now that there's an abuse case or something, but you don't, that's very few and far between.
Right.
So Diane recalled her first day of work at Willowbrook in 1969. She was given a heavy key that was used to unlock the heavy steel doors that lined the hallways. So here's the first tip for her. Why do you need a lock to open the doors to patients' rooms? They should have never been locked in there in the first place. So she recalls opening a door and finding approximately 40 toddlers in a room by themselves, unsupervised. Some were smiling, but most of them were drooling or crying. Some were walking towards her, probably for a little bit of human interaction. Some just sat in silence in their little wooden crate beds, and others sat on the floor. So they didn't have a regular bed. I saw some of the pictures. They were literally little wooden boxes. She stated that they denied their basic right to humanity while living at the school. Residents were rarely taught much of anything, despite Willowbrook's claim of being a school. No behavioral modification or exercises, social skills, or hygiene and grooming skills of any kind were taught to anyone. And on the rare occasion showers were given, they were given in groups and given 5 minutes to clean themselves with no soap, no toothpaste, no individual towels. Sort of like spraying down the cattle. terrible.
Ugh, it's awful.
Many residents needed help eating, but the lack of staff led to a cut in meal times. What should have been an enjoyable time of the day, eating, which I love to eat and I find it very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually 3 minutes to ingest whatever they offered you. So I think what they called it was gruel. I think that's the equivalent of slop.
Pretty
Like
much.
like on the I don't know if anybody out there is a fan of the Big Brother reality show, but the have-nots get to stay in a room that's substandards, hard beds, what have you, but they also only get to eat what's called slop. So they have to do that for a week. But that's a TV show. This is real life.
Right.
So Bug Guanoli, again, I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, was employed by Willowbrook for 11 years. When I was doing this research, the first thought that came to my head was, she worked there for 11 years, and she said the first day she had to open a door and there was children in a room that was locked up, and she basically witnessed the poor behavior and just like deplorable conditions, and she still stayed there for 11 years.
Yeah, it's like, come on, people, you got to have some kind of work ethic or moral ethics, even just to like. I wouldn't been day one. I would have left that place and just went to the police
Oh
station.
yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, sometimes things that are acceptable to a group of people are unacceptable to the individual. And there could have been a lot more people like her that knew it was wrong and they were just afraid to, speak up.
Right.
So it's kind of sad that she didn't feel comfortable enough to speak up. So shortly after all that, Senator Robert Kennedy toured the institution and was quoted saying that individuals in the crowded facility are living in their own filth and dirt and their clothes are rags, that they're in rooms less comfortable and cheerful than animal cages in the zoo. Well, that's putting it mildly, because the pictures I saw weren't even remotely close to looking like a cage in a zoo. It was horrible. They get the cages cleaned in a zoo.
Wow.
Kennedy offered a series of recommendations. Now, this isn't like law, this is just a recommendation for improving the conditions, and it called for a 5-year action plan for improvements. But what gets me is the school remained open. So, had he said, I find this place to be deplorable and it's unacceptable and I'm closing it, good for you. He didn't. Nobody even checked up on this contingency plan.
Right.
And although that the hepatitis studies had been discontinued, the school's reputation for being a warehouse in for New York City's mentally disabled continued. Many residents of Willowbrook were presumably abandoned by their family, foster care agencies, or other systems designed to care for them. So while all this is going on, that was my other thought to myself. So these kids and adults are left like this. Where's their family? I know in a lot of cases, your family can't handle that, and they put them into this school in good faith. But did they not go and visit them and see what the conditions were?
That's what it seems
I just
like.
don't understand. I mean, and then a lot of people, it's not that they couldn't deal with them, they didn't want to deal with them.
Right. And
They
but they
weren't
wanted a payout at the end.
exactly. They didn't all have this terrible mental disability. Some of them had diabetes. Some
Eye disorders and things like that, like stuff that wasn't able to be like, it was just something you could manage at home nowadays.
yes, like autism. Like these are manageable.
Right.
And a lot of the times, I guess people just didn't want to have to be bothered. There was an advocate for the mentally disabled children and victims of child abuse named Don